The current escalation surrounding the political state of Israel has been on the radar for many interested in end times prophecy. Interestingly enough, what most of us have been taught for years regarding Israel and the last days is flipped upside down, much like the rest of what the world teaches. Today, it's time to discuss the truth regarding this land and its future and coming war. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, and welcome back, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Parable of the Vineyard YouTube live stream. My name is Adam, your host, and I welcome you. We're taking a quick break from our Matthew study. Wanted to discuss what's going on over in the Middle East with the tensions with Israel, Palestine, and really what the implications are. We're not going to talk a whole lot about what you already hear all over the news and what everyone else is talking about. I want to talk about kind of the deception behind the scenes of what's really going on and kind of really what the agenda might be here, and cross-referencing with what the scriptures actually say about that land in the end times and what, per the word, is going to happen there. So, again, not going to be spending a whole lot of time, what you've already been hearing about rockets and, all these different things, but want to talk about what you're not going to hear on mainstream news. So let's start with a quick prayer and a little shofar blast, and let's get right to it because we have a lot to cover. So, Heavenly Father, Yahweh Most High, we come before you in Yahusha, your Son's name, and we thank and praise you for sending him that we may have life. And we pray that if new information is brought forth to someone tonight, that they might test it and prove all things, O Yahweh. And we just pray that you bless the study and be with us. And we thank you for the Shabbat and all that you do for us, all your righteous commandments. We bless you. Amen. All right, so a little shofar. All right, and here we are. So what we're doing here is I've got a little article written, and what we're going to do is essentially I found that most of you like this. You like to have something to study on your own pace, at your own pace, at your own time. A lot of you watch the videos and are like, man, I want to go back and see all those verses you used. So I will make sure to have this the link up here for you so that you can go back and read it for yourself on your own time. But essentially, I'm just going to be highlighting and covering this. And again, so kind of like the intro said, just going to repeat it. The current escalation surrounding the political state of Israel has been on the radar for many interested in end times prophecy. Interestingly enough, what most of us have been taught for years regarding Israel and the last days is flipped upside down, much like the rest of what the world teaches. So today, it's time to discuss the truth regarding this land, its future, and coming war, which what we're seeing now may or not be it, which time's going to tell. But there's things to be aware of that. For those of you that have been watching this ministry for at least 2.5 years, this is something I spoke on a lot about 2 years ago, maybe even 2.5 years ago, but haven't spent a whole lot of time on it recently. And based off of hearing from you, there's a lot of you that are new in this walk, newly waking up, so you might have never heard about this, and I felt this is a perfect time to discuss it. So I said we weren't going to go over news articles, but I just want to do a quick update because I've been preparing this all week, and just yesterday we heard about the ceasefire, but there's a couple things, there's a couple things that I just want to share with you. So it says Israel-Gaza ceasefire holds, but it's fragile. But it's a fragile peace as both sides dubiously claim success, and that is actually what's happening. They're both claiming success, and for different reasons. But what's interesting is the ceasefire terms. Israel really didn't have any terms. They're just like, okay, we'll stop bombing you. But Palestine's like, hey, we'll cease fire, but you can't enter into the what's it called, Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? So interestingly enough, that was Palestine's number one term to be met. And this was just, I think, a few hours, or actually about an hour ago. Israeli forces in violent confrontations with Palestinians outside Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque after Gaza ceasefire. And like I said, that was their only term to be met, that they would continue to do a ceasefire. So what's going to happen? I don't know. Obviously time will tell, but I just wanted to just share that just because it's kind of new information. And now let's move on with what I really want to talk about tonight. So we need to be aware of what's actually happening in this region. We are living during a time of mass deception. And if you aren't familiar with that at this point, I would highly recommend looking into really what's around you in your world. Reason being is, they're lying to us about so many things. So most of what we have grown up believing isn't true, period. Probably 90% of things. We're talking like cosmology. We're talking about the pharmaceuticals. We're talking about the medical industry. We're talking about what cancer actually is. Just so many different things. The education system, the people that kind of run the world behind the scenes. It's just everything. The money system, what politics really is. It's just like everything is just like almost upside down. And if you are still watching mainstream news and kind of believing what they're saying, man, it is time to pull out of that. So we were warned by our Messiah. It says, for there shall rise false messiahs, false prophets, in which, I'm going to be honest with you, when you watch mainstream news, you're watching modern day prophets telling you what's going on and what's going to happen and what the future is going to hold. Isn't that what they're doing? For the enemy, at least. And shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Matthew 24:24. So tonight, I'd like to cover some details about that region you may not be aware of, pertinent information in these last days in order to not be led astray by the media, right? And to not to be deceived. So what is the political state of Israel? That's, I think, really where we need to start, so we can kind of establish, moving forward, what's going on. So let me read this for you. So for as long as we can remember, we have been taught to support Israel, pray for God's people, the Jews, pray for Israel, and many other taglines. And I could tell you firsthand, my life, my genealogy, my heritage, growing up in a Jewish family with most of my father's side still living in that land today, I can tell you I am no stranger to these sentiments. I remember growing up and people I meet, like Christians, are like, oh, you're God's people, and oh, you're so special. And that's just what we're taught, right? We're taught like Jews and then Christians, and so I get it, totally get it. But regardless, we need to investigate whether this state of Israel is the end times promise of the regathering of Yahweh's people or a deception. And I want to stop there real quick. Sometimes it's just right in your face, just the flag itself. And there's a lot of articles and videos out there debunking, like, oh, this is not the Star of Remphan. But I gotta tell you, brothers and sisters, just DuckDuckGo or whatever your search engine is, Star of Remphan, and you'll see there's some pretty bad connections as to what this shape it actually is. There's some really bad connections with what's going on here. It's on our dollar bill. It's just the as above, so below. The good old boy system here. It's all over the place. You'll see in a lot of cultic things. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but sometimes it's just right in your face. And this is exactly what Stephen was talking about in Acts 7. It says, yeah, you took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, figures which you made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. Acts 7:43. So let me just say this. I want to make it very clear, very, very clear. I'm not against any people as a whole. This is not going to be hating on anybody in particular, especially because, like I've just divulged to you, that my family lives there, right? So I'm not going to sit here and dog on my family or tear down on people, or that's not my goal here. But we need to talk about the truth here. So I'll make it clear: I'm not against any people as a whole. I'm not. I believe, and I firmly believe this, I believe that Yahweh's grace, Yahweh, in case you're new, Yahweh is the name of our Heavenly Father. I believe that Yahweh's grace and mercy is available to any ethnicity in any location in the world, regardless of their past, anyone who turns to him through belief in his Son and walks out their faith as he walked. I mean, that's really the gospel. So with that being established, let's briefly review scriptures regarding the true end times regathering, because what you'll find in almost every single church out there is they'll teach that, the regathering happened, the Isaiah 66, can a nation be born at once? All the second Exodus, the second Exodus, the end times regathering, Jerusalem's going to be protected by the Most High. They'll tell you, they teach it in seminary, right? They'll tell you that land over there, that political state of Israel, is the end times regathering. And so that's really what we need to test really quickly. So we're going to read some of the scriptures regarding the true end times regathering. So therefore, behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that it shall no more be said, Yahweh lives, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But Yahweh lives, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he had driven them, and I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. And that's Jeremiah 16, 14 through 15. So this passage is also repeated in Jeremiah 23, almost verbatim, just a few different words. So, but driving home the point that 2 times in Jeremiah, that there will one day be another Exodus that would be so big, so eventful, that no one would talk about the first departure from captivity with Moses and the Israelites, but would be utterly amazed at this end times regathering. So I put this in front of you, right? If the 1948 state of Israel is this fulfillment, then the Jeremiah prophecy failed to deliver, as the Exodus from Egypt still stands as one of the most greatest events of all time. The 1948 event doesn't even come close. And again, I'm not dogging on it because my relatives lived there. My relatives were part of this, right? So I'm not dogging it, but we just need to find out via the scriptures whether this is true or not. So considering I don't believe Jeremiah's prophecy is able to disappoint, this great event has not happened yet, in my opinion, right? So everything I'm going to share with you outside of scriptures will be my opinion. So it'll be up to you to pray about it, test it, but I did feel led to share this information with you. Again, for some of you that have been with the ministry for a couple of years, this will be a review of some things that we talked a lot about 2.5 years ago. But for a lot of you that are new, this is for you. So, behold, I will gather them out of all countries, whither I have driven them in mine anger and in my fury and in great wrath, and I will bring them again into this place, and will cause them to dwell safely. It's Jeremiah 32:37. So, let's be honest with each other for a moment. The political state of Israel has not been dwelling in safety, especially the past few weeks. And you can just look at, state of Israel, political state of Israel conflicts since 1948, right? It's just, they're not dwelling in safety or peace. And they shall dwell in land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. And they shall dwell therein, even they and their children's children forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them. And I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. That's a big part right there. My tabernacle, right? New Jerusalem is his end times tabernacle. Just read Revelation. It'll tell you that New Jerusalem, when it comes down out of heaven, is his tabernacle. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their Elohim. Elohim is the Hebrew for God. And they shall be my people. And the nations shall know that I, Yahweh, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. And this is Ezekiel 37, 25 to 28. This is directly following Ezekiel 37 with the resurrection. And I can tell you right here, I should have put some of those verses in here, but the resurrection precedes his true end times Jerusalem being established. So his sanctuary and tabernacle are not in the midst of them. This is Yahweh's promise, which is not yet fulfilled. The nations do not recognize that Yah sanctifies them. Why is this? Could it be that this regathering is a planned deception for the last days? Think about it. During the mid to late 1800s, we saw the emergence of political Zionism. Just research that. Research this term. Maybe like political Zionism truth or something like that. And modern day dispensational theology rise at the same time. So right in the mid 1800s, you've got political Zionism, which is the movement that was fueled and used by the two world wars, First World War and Second World War, to get the public approval of creating this state of Israel. But at the same time, but modern day dispensational theology, which is still the top theology that's taught in almost every single seminary, right? So most pastors are taught dispensationalist theology. So without Zionism, dispensationalism falls flat on its face. The reason being, it depends on the separation of Elohim's love in two different ways. One way for the church and one for the blood descendants of Jews. The truth is, Yah is no respecter of persons. And this is from Peter. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, "Of a truth, I perceive that Elohim is no respecter of persons. But in every nation, he that fears him and works righteousness is accepted with him." So what modern day dispensational theology, there's actually a really good video out there by 119 Ministries. It's called The Error of Dispensationalism. Again, 119 Ministries, The Error of Dispensationalism. I don't agree with everything they teach, but good ministry, a lot of great basic topics like that to help you understand the error of the church and the error of a lot of doctrines that we've been taught. So again, it's called The Error of Dispensationalism. Phenomenal video. I'd highly recommend it. So anyway, so point being is dispensationalism, just to give you the quick thing, dispensationalism teaches a separation of people, the church, the Jews, and so you see the emergence of both of these movements happening at the same time because they coincide with each other, because dispensational theology teaches that Israel needs to be regathered, the third temple needs to be built, the Antichrist needs to stand in it and say, "I'm God," right? And then the end comes. So everybody's like, yeah, let's get this Israel thing going, right? Let's build that third temple. Come on, let's move things along, right? And so that's why it's a huge deception in these last days. So I'm going to ask you a question. Are those who deny Yahusha even his people at this time? Then you said Yahusha again unto them. Yahusha is the true name, at least the best understanding that I have at this point, the true name for our Messiah, our Savior. A lot of people say Yeshua. I say Yahusha. Not a big point of argument for me. So it was then said Yahusha again unto them, I go my way, and you shall seek me, and shall die in your sins. Now, at this point, he's talking to the Pharisees. Whether I go, you cannot come. Then said the Jews, will he kill himself? Because he saith, whither I go, you cannot come. And he said unto them, you are from beneath, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world. I said therefore unto you that you shall die in your sins, for if you believe not that I am he, you shall die in your sins. John 8:21-24. So regardless of their physical bloodline, they don't believe in him. They don't believe he is he. He's the one, the prophesied one to come. They die in their sins. They're cast off. John 15:5-6. I am the vine. This is Messiah speaking. He's saying, I am the vine. You are the branches, the Natsarim. He that abides in me, and I in him, the same brings forth much fruit. For without me you can do nothing. If a man abides not, for a man does not live in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. So he's basically saying, if you're not in me, you're out. You're thrown in the fire. So think about the parable of the vineyard. It's the parable that I thought of when thinking of naming this ministry. It was probably the most profound parable to me at that time, which is also called the parable of the wicked tenants. The wicked people were cast out of the vineyard, and it was given to another people who would bring forth fruit in their due season. Truth be told, Moses prophesied that when the great prophet comes, who would be likened to him, so a prophet like Moses, and Messiah Yahusha, his life, his ministry, is the only thing that's even nearly close, almost verbatim on a lot of the a lot of the highlights of Moshe's ministry is Messiah. That's right. So Moses prophesied that when the great prophet comes, who would be likened to him, all who do not believe in him would suffer the vengeance of Yahweh. This is Deuteronomy 18 through 19. I will raise up to them a prophet of their brethren, like thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them as I shall command him. And whatever man shall not hearken to whatsoever words that prophet shall speak in my name, I will take vengeance on him. So, not really a good outcome for someone that denies the Messiah, right? So, here's what I want to understand. This is what I want to share with you. So, brothers and sisters, while the political state of Israel may have some true believers in its midst, I know some, right? The country as a whole is filled with those who have been severed from the olive tree that is Israel. Read Romans 11. So, due to their outright rejection of Yahweh's Son, our Messiah Yahusha. I don't ever like to get into their rabbinical writing, but I want you to understand what they believe and what they think and what they read about our Messiah. And again, I could tell you, growing up in Judaism, they'll have that Torah in a nice shiny case right up front, and you can look at it. It's got a beautiful wrapping, and it's beautiful. It's on display, but you don't read it. You read the man-made rabbinical stuff. It's the same stuff that Messiah came and rebuked, right? He's like, you don't love the Father, you don't keep his commandments, you keep your own man-made traditions, right? I want to share something with you. This is from the Talmud, right? This is the William Davidson Talmud. This is what they believe. This is scripture for those people. Onkelos said to him, "What is the punishment of that man?" A euphemism for Jesus himself in the next world. Jesus said to him, "He is punished with boiling excrement." That's number 2. As the master said, anyone who mocks the words of the sages will be sentenced to boiling excrement. And Yahusha did. He mocked the Pharisees and Sadducees. He mocked them because they were wrong. And this was his sin, as he mocked the words of the sages. The Gemara comments, "Come and see the difference between the sinners of Israel and the prophets of the nations of the world. As Balaam, who was a prophet, wished Israel harm, whereas Jesus, the Nazarene, who was a Jewish sinner, sought their well-being." So anyways, if you didn't catch that, they are saying essentially, so anyways, he's essentially saying that Yahusha is in hell punished with boiling excrement. That's what they believe about our Messiah. And this is the Talmud that they put really above the Torah. So as a whole, right, this nation is an imposter as a whole, okay? Don't freak out and be like, what are you talking about? So this nation is an imposter as a whole. I'm not talking about the individual people, but the political state itself, which was set up by the Jesuits of Rome. The Vatican is the beast of Revelation. It's the fourth kingdom that Daniel said, right, would be ruling and reigning until the end. And if you don't understand that the Vatican still rules behind the scenes, there's a couple of videos I'd recommend to you, some short ones. So anyways, this nation set up by the Jesuits of Rome to be a huge distraction and ultimately a deception for those who are not awake and gladly receive the mainstream narrative as they do other topics. 1 John 2:22 through 23, "Who is a liar but he that denies Yahusha is the Messiah? He is Antichrist that denies the Father and the Son. Whosoever denies the Son, the same has not the Father. He that acknowledges the Son has the Father also." So I'm just going to straight up ask you, people in Judaism who not only deny the Messiah, but even go so far to believe a book that says that he's in hell in boiling poo, those are not Yah's people. And I'm not condemning the people as a whole because, again, I'll be straight up with you. I came from these people, right? I didn't grow up as one of his because I grew up in Jewish traditions. But praise Yah, he allowed me to come out of that. Can a lot of them come out of it? Absolutely. And there's converts every day. But what we're doing here at this point is we're talking about the nation as a whole, right? I'm not talking bad about a specific people, right? So what's the point? They are not his people as a whole. Only those who have been washed by the blood of the Lamb are his people. Modern-day dispensational theology teaches that when Yahusha returns, he will rapture the church and then deal with Israel, the Jews, that they may all be saved. I'm here to share with you that's far from the truth. When he comes back, those who are not ready will be cast out into outer darkness, no exceptions, for he is not a respecter of persons. And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and the west, and shall sit down with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, but the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness. And when he was speaking, the Jews at that time were the children of the kingdom, right? So the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew 8:11-12. So also consider the parable of the king and the wedding, and also the 10 virgins, right? So people that the main point between both of these parables, the parable of the king and the wedding and the 10 virgins, is the ones who are not ready does not go in. So when he comes, if they're still severed from Messiah, denying Messiah, they ain't in. Period. Just what he says. So now you can tell that I'm not very good at making these website pages. Sorry. So why the deception of Israel? Why? So this is where things get pretty interesting. But first we need to establish this. And the 10 horns which you saw upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For Elohim hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of Elohim shall be fulfilled. So the first part of this, where the beast hates and destroys the whore, will be very clear soon enough. But the main point to understand at this point, Yahweh is sovereign. Nothing gets past him, and there's nothing to fear but him alone. No need to waste any of your time, thoughts, or emotions on any of these world leaders, politicians, or elite families who carry out the evil in this world. They are playing their part, just as Pharaoh did before the great rescue from above. So while we are going to talk about some of this and some of these people, what I'm saying is, I see a lot of people talking trash about these people and hating them and being so mad at them. Listen, they're going to get theirs. They are going to get theirs, right? So the reason I'm establishing this is I don't typically like to give much credibility to the enemy's plans. But for this study, reviewing some of it helps to bring the whole picture into focus as to the overall plan in the end times for the political state of Israel. As you will see later, this will corroborate what Ezekiel prophesied many years ago. Here is a short clip from a video titled Ezekiel 36, End Times Israel. So this is about a 39-minute video. I've just cut like a 3 or 4 minute. I don't actually know. It's just a short clip from this video, but I would highly recommend the entire one. And it's one that I did about 2.5 years ago, and it's even more relevant than it was 2.5 years ago when I put it out. So we're gonna watch that really quickly and then move on. Give me just a moment here.
Who gave my land to themselves as a possession with wholehearted joy and utter contempt, that they might make its pasture lands a prey. Many of us know by now that there is a group of families that literally own everything materialized, and it is their plan to turn the populations into fearful, helpless slaves. The Illuminati, the fake Jews, Satanists, the so-called elites, or whatever you want to call them, have taken over nearly every government. This plan has been in motion for a long time. Some would even say thousands of years. In 1920, the League of Nations was formed as a precursor to the United Nations, whose beginning was officially October 24th, 1945. The official reasoning for establishing these groups are stated as: the League of Nations was an international organization founded after the Paris Peace Conference in 1919. The League's goals included disarmament, preventing war through collective security, settling disputes between countries through negotiation, diplomacy, and improving global welfare. By the scriptures, we know that when the world comes together as one, this is not a good thing. All one must do is research the last time this happened, the Tower of Babel. Its goal was to attempt to rule the world and overthrow God. Thousands of years later, has anything changed? Not a chance. I could go on in detail about how the UN created this political state of Israel and the lies and deceit that went into creating the emotional response from the world in order to back this. But that would honestly take a whole other video to explain. What is interesting is who this was done for. The Rothschild family, who many believe are. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Here's a copy of the official letter. Remember what we just read. Who gave my land to themselves as a possession with wholehearted joy and utter contempt, that they might make its pasture lands a prey. Casting God's sacred land for a prey to fulfill their desires is their whole plan. In 1871, Albert Pike, a 33rd degree and leader of the Freemasons, wrote a letter mapping out the 3 world wars to create agendas and chaos in order to pave the road to gain worldwide control and a one world government. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must be strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which will be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. So far, the first and second have gone according to plan, and keep in mind, brothers and sisters, Revelation 17:17, for God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So not to worry, brothers and sisters, this is all part of Yahuwah's grand plan. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, and spiritual and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Then, everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Who gave my land to themselves as a possession with wholehearted joy and utter contempt, that they might make its pasture lands a prey. In short, Israel is the bait and the prey, just as Ezekiel prophesied it would happen. Essentially, they made the 1948 state of Israel just to use it to start World War III with its coming destruction. So I ask, what would a believer think if not too long from now, the state of Israel was destroyed and laid waste? Since most teach this is the fulfillment of God, what would happen to the faith of many? Questions would arise. Doubts in the legitimacy of scriptures will become rampant, just as the enemy wants it to be. Their plan is to convert the multitude disillusioned with Christianity. Should we really be all that surprised that we are going to witness this event? After all, our Messiah told us what happened in the end times. And when ye shall see Jerusalem encompassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled.
Okay, so sorry, that was about 8 minutes. But that whole video is about 39 minutes. I would recommend highly, if a lot of this stuff is new to you, I would really recommend watching that video. That video really encompasses a lot of most of the things that we're talking about today in a kind of a longer fashion, with a little more information. But anyways, what you saw there is that's really the premise. Is again, I don't like getting really into what the enemy's up to and what's their plans, because ultimately it's the word that we rely on for letting us know what's ahead. But it just so happens that their plan coincided with exactly what the scriptures say about the end time. So ever since the establishment of the League of Nations, eventually becoming the United Nations, their goal has been to create the political state of Israel. So post World War II Holocaust emotions, right? So they had the Holocaust, and everybody's like, and I'm not being insensitive again, especially my upbringing, but what I'm saying is that that's their thing. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, they form the reaction, and they offer the solution. That's everything that's going on with COVID, and almost everything in this world, with staged shootings. It's all we're going to create the problem, we're going to manufacture the reaction, and offer up the solution, right? So that's essentially my point overall with what's going on over there in the state of Israel. Once again, problem, reaction, solution. So just like the first and second World Wars gave us the problem, World War II specifically was the reaction, and then post-World War II is the solution, which was to create this state. But to keep it in check for the Third World War, let me just keep going. So, and set it up to be the match. So the state of Israel is to be set up as the match that ignites World War III. It is my opinion and understanding that if these tensions continue to escalate, the utter annihilation of Israel will spark worldwide pandemonium, division, and continued conflict, right? So they say 6 million people died in the Holocaust. Well, I think I'm going to mention this a little bit later, so I might be getting a little ahead of myself. But, right now 8.7 million is living in that. So if that place were to get leveled, can you imagine what the worldwide emotions would be like? But we'll talk about that in a second. So again, remember the Third World War, and some people, they're like, hey, this Albert Pike letter stuff isn't real because they're using terms like Nazism and Illuminati and stuff. I'm here to tell you that I believe that these plans have been in motion for so long, hundreds, if not even at least hundreds of years, maybe even 1,000 years old. And terms like Nazism and Illuminati, they created these terms. So they could have known about these terms long before they even came to be. Nevertheless, regardless, the first letter and the second letter, which was on public display before they even happened, it happened, right? So there's something to them. So again, let's read this. So the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantages of the differences caused by the agent tour of the Illuminati between the political Zionists, which is what that state is over there, and the leaders of the Islamic world, which is some of the tensions we're seeing now and have been seeing for many years. And, at the end of this, I'm going to kind of lay it out where kind of three different directions this whole thing can go. This whole thing can just die down and just be, put in check for years from now. Months from now. I don't know. I haven't been told how this is all going to go down, but I just wanted to share with you with what their plans are and with what the word says. So the war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other, right? So meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided, which is really division has been the theme of this world for at least the last 10 years. Let's divide the people on every single subject we can. And here's another one. You're starting to see like protests and, people getting beat up over this topic. So, so this is, that's kind of their plan, right? Is to set up the state of Israel and leave it out as the bait. So Ezekiel 36. So now that we have heard the enemy's plans and intentions, let's see how it coincides with the word. This is Ezekiel 36, 1-3. Also, thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, Ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh Elohim, because the enemy hath said against you, Because the enemy hath said against you, that was really embarrassing. The enemy has said against you, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. So the enemy in the last days will have possession of Israel, of the borders of Israel. That's what it's saying right here. Because the enemy has said against you, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. Therefore prophesy and say, Thus says Yahweh Elohim, because they have made you desolate and swallowed you up on every side, that you might be a possession unto the residue of the nations, right? Think of the United Nations, right? The United Nations owns that place, essentially. They created it. And ye are taken up in the lips of talkers and are the infamy of the people. People don't like the state of Israel. People don't like America and Israel. And just take a wild guess why. So it seems pretty clear that the land of Israel would be in the possession of the enemy. We just saw a few moments ago exactly how the enemy has taken hold of it through deception. Also, let's take a closer look at verse 3 in the Septuagint. Therefore prophesy and say, Thus says Yahweh Elohim, because you have been dishonored and hated by those around you, still going on, that you might be a possession to the remainder of the nations, and you became a byword and a reproach to the nations. Let's take a look at reproach, the word definition of reproach. An expression of rebuke or disapproval, the act or action of reproaching, disapproving, a cause of occasion to blame, discredit, disgrace, one subjected to censure or scorn. And quite frankly, people hate the state of Israel. Now this, I couldn't find anything recent. This is just 2012. And this is the opinion of Israel as a nation by other nations. And you'll see here, the blue means mainly positive, and the, orange-ish would be mainly negative. And you'll see that USA, big, right? Mainly positive. Really the only places you have that are mainly positive is USA, Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana. And you'll see the rest of the world really hates this country. And this is actually, 2012, 2013, 2014. So you'll see it's mainly negative all across the world. People don't like this country. And that's exactly what Ezekiel said, is that you became a byword and a reproach to the nations. People hate it. Here are some scriptures accurately depicting what the real end times Israel, Jerusalem will look like. And the word that Yeshayahu, Isaiah, the son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it, in a good way. And many people shall go and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the Elohai, the God of Jacob, Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. O house of Jacob, come ye, let us walk in the light, the Torah of Yahweh. That's Isaiah 2, 1-5. That's really what it's going to look like. People are going to come to it and be like, teach us of your ways. Nobody's doing that right now. Here's just from Google Maps, right? You got the Supreme Court of Israel, and just look what the major street, who it's named after. Again, we kind of covered that in that short clip of Ezekiel 36 video. So let's keep going in Ezekiel 36. Therefore, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yahweh Elohim. Thus says Yahweh Elohim to the mountains, and to the hills, and to the rivers, and to the valleys, to the desolate wastes, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey and derision to the residue of the heathen or nations that are round about. Therefore, thus says Yahweh Elohim, surely in the fire of my jealousy I have spoken against the residue of the nations, and against all Idumea, Edom, which have appointed my land into their possession with all the joy of their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it out for a prey. So what did that just say? Is the nations seized his land, like, haha, it's ours, and they're gonna cast it out as a prey. So it's like bait, right? So this is exactly the plan of the beast in the end times for this land. And the 10 horns which you saw upon the beast, which is Rome, Vatican, whatever you want to call it, the papacy, whatever you want to call it. The 10 horns which you saw upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So the beast in the end times destroys the mother of all harlots. Now, I know we've all been taught that the whore, the mother of all harlots, is Rome or America or the Muslim caliphate, many different things. Let me just say this, right? Just straight up, almost the whole world is Babylon. Yes, America is Babylon. America is also Egypt. What we have to realize is America is not the mother, right? The mother comes before the daughter. I'm here to tell you that the mother, the original harlot, who was originally married to the Most High? Jerusalem. No one else. No one else was married to the Most High, and was married and then went a whoring and was put away, cast out. Why? Because of her adultery, because of her fornication, because of her filthiness, because of her abominations. So I know we've all been taught that the whore, the mother of all harlots, is Rome or America. The problem is Rome, Vatican, is the beast, not the harlot. It cannot be both. It is the fourth kingdom of Daniel's vision that would rule until the return of Yahusha. If this concept is new to you, I would highly recommend spending 20 minutes on this video. And it's on the homepage. It's pinned on the homepage. So if you just go to Parable of the Vineyard homepage on YouTube, you'll see it's called Unlocked, the Beast of Revelation. It's like 22 minutes. 20 or 22 minutes. So those of you that have been convinced that America is the mother of all harlots, here's where I'll agree with you. America is a harlot, but she's not the mother. She's a daughter of Babylon. She's a daughter of Babylon, period. So also, America is America is surely a harlot of harlots, spreading her abominations all over the world, yet she is still just a daughter of her mother, the original harlot. So now we're going to watch a short 3-minute clip from our Mystery Babylon video. I think the whole video is like 35 minutes or something like that. I actually left a link for that one here. So let's watch this really quickly. And there's a ton to this. This is just a really basic understanding of who the mother is, because Revelation tells you clearly who the mother is, that great city. So.
And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the woman which you saw is that great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city, that was clothed in fine linen and in purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. Many have concluded that this must mean the Vatican, as they are dressed in purple and scarlet, and it could make sense if this verse is isolated, and we will expound on this momentarily. However, in the previous video, we showed unequivocally that the Vatican, also known as the Holy Roman Empire, is the beast of Revelation, not the great harlot who we are discussing today. So if not the Vatican, then who? According to the Scriptures. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Adonai was crucified. It's crystal clear, and all agree, that Yahusha HaMashiach, our Savior, was crucified in Jerusalem, whom Isaiah himself called Sodom. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Your country is desolate, your cities are burned with fire, your land, strangers devour it in your presence, and it is desolate, as overthrown by strangers. Except Yahuwah Sabaoth had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah. Hear the word of Yahuwah, you rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of Yahuwah, you people of Gomorrah. How is the faithful city become a harlot? It was full of judgment, righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers. Yes, Jerusalem, the mother of harlots. The world is full of the daughters of this harlot, and nearly every major city acts as Babylon. But there's only one mother. Let's look at more evidence.
Oops, we were getting ready to do another show for so the premise behind that, and that's just a really basic understanding, is in the book of Revelation, Babylon is that great city, and it's mentioned like 4 or 5 times as you saw. And it's revealed that great city is Jerusalem. So, if you're still like, nah, there's just no way, Adam, Jerusalem's not Mystery Babylon, I would highly recommend you watching that video. It is a major concept to understand these last times if we want to understand what's really going on in the world. So this is important, as the destruction of Mystery Babylon is a central theme in the book of Revelation. So think about it. Jerusalem, Israel, is the mother of all who have gone astray from Yahuwah. She was married to him and put away because of her whoring and abominations. While she was destroyed in 70 AD, this was not the final time. Yahusha discusses this in an end times view. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, remember, this is all, tell us, what is the end of the world? When the apostles asked him, and this is his reply, when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto, for these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. And that was Luke 21, 19 through 22. So in 70 AD, all things were not yet fulfilled, right? A lot of things were fulfilled, but not all things. That would make it a false statement. So I do believe that Jerusalem will be destroyed. Mystery Babylon will be destroyed in the end time. So let's finish up with Ezekiel 36. Prophesy therefore concerning the land of Israel, and say unto the mountains, and to the hills, and to the rivers, and to the valleys, thus says Yahweh Elohim, behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my fury, because ye have borne the shame of the nations, the heathen. Therefore thus says Yahweh Elohim, I have lifted up mine hand, surely the heathen that are about you, they shall bear their shame. But you, O mountains of Israel, ye shall shoot forth your branches, and yield your fruit to my people of Israel, for they are at hand to come home. For behold, I am for you, and I will turn unto you, and you shall be tilled and sown, and I will multiply men upon you, all the house of Israel, even all of it. And the city shall be inhabited, and the wastes shall be builded. Ezekiel 36, 6-10. This is yet to happen. Why? Because the only people living in that land is, it's mostly just Jews, which are the remnant of Judah. Now, there are some studies out there that will say that the people in that land are Khazarians or Edomites, those kind of things. I've looked into them. I don't know that I necessarily believe that's true or not. I think the people that control that territory would be considered Edom. So, point being, it doesn't really matter. What the overall point is, all the house of Israel has not been regathered to that land. That's the point. Continuing Ezekiel 36, and I will multiply upon you man and beast, and they shall increase and bring fruit. And I will settle you after your old estates. I will do better unto you than yet your beginnings, and ye shall know that I am Yahuwah. Yea, I will cause men to walk upon you, even my people Israel, and they shall possess you, and you shall be their inheritance, and you shall no more henceforth bereave them of men. That's Ezekiel 36, 11-12. So once they come back, they will never leave again. Thus says Yahweh Elohim, because they say unto you, your land devours up men, and has bereaved thy nations. Therefore you shall devour men no more. Be neither bereave thy nations any more, says Yahweh Elohim. Neither will I cause men to hear you in shame of the nations any more. Neither shall you bear the reproach of the people any more, which this hasn't happened yet. They're still bearing reproach. That nation is still a shame to the nations about. Neither shall you cause the nations to fall any more, says Yahweh Elohim. Moreover, the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in their own land, they defiled it by their own way and by their doings. Their way was before me as the uncleanness of a removed woman, right, a menstruous woman. Wherefore I poured my fury upon them for the blood that they have shed upon the land, and for their idols wherewith they have polluted it. And I scattered them among the nations, and they were dispersed through the countries. According to their way and according to their doings I judged them. And when they entered unto the heathen, whither they went, they profaned my holy name, when they said to them, These are the people of Yahuwah, and are gone forth out of his land. But I had pity for my holy name, which the house of Israel had profaned among the nations, whither they went. Therefore say unto the house of Israel, Thus says Yahweh Elohim, I do not do this for your sakes, O house of Israel, but for mine holy name's sake, which you have profaned among the heathen, whither ye went. And I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the heathen, which ye have profaned in the midst of them. And the heathen shall know that I am Yahweh, says Elohim, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes, which, let me tell you something, it hasn't happened, right? The nations haven't seen this great work of Yahweh and be like, whoa, that's the day when like New Jerusalem comes down, everybody's going to be like, oh. For I will take you from among the heathen, the nations, and gather you out of all the countries, and will bring you into your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water upon you, which we know the Pharisees and Sadducees declined, right? The baptism of John. And you shall be clean from all your filthiness, and from all your idols I will cleanse you. And that was Ezekiel 36, 13-25. So something the current inhabitants of Israel have not been cleansed of. They're still abiding in false worship and idolatry. True story. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you an heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my judgments and do them. Amazing little part here is the whole prophecy, the whole prophecy about receiving the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, would be to help guide us to actually keep his commandments. Very different than what modern-day Christianity, dispensationalism, teaches. And ye shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and ye shall be my people, and I will be your Elohim. And I will save you from all your uncleannesses, and I will call for the corn, and will increase it, and lay no famine upon you. And I will multiply the fruit of the tree, the increase of the field, that ye shall receive no more reproach of famine among the heathen, the nations. Which interesting part here, Yahweh says it's going to make them fruitful. If you look at the state of Israel, completely desolate since well, since she was destroyed in 70 AD, the only reason that area has any growth is because man-made like aqueducts and things bringing water from other areas. This is not a just a instant work of Yahweh, which he talks about where he'll just boom, he'll make the desolate land like the Garden of Eden, which we'll see here in a second. Then ye shall remember your own evil ways and your doings that were not good, and you shall loathe yourselves in your own sight for your iniquities, and for your abominations. Not for your sakes do I do this, says Yahweh Elohim. Be it known unto you, be ashamed and confounded for your own ways, O house of Israel. Thus says Yahweh Elohim, in the day that I shall have cleansed you from all your iniquities, I will also cause you to dwell in the cities, and the wastes shall be builded. So Yahweh says that the time he does this, at the time he does this, the desolate cities will be builded. So this is an interesting point. So when we or they, whoever, I don't want to assume that any of us are. I want to be a part of this gathering. Quite frankly, it's all I can think about sometimes is wanting to be with Yahusha, entering a New Jerusalem, and him saying, well done. It's really the whole focus of this ministry is for me, my family to get ready, and to be a light and to help other people realize that that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be reconciled back to the Father through his Son and keeping the commandments and walking as Messiah Yahusha walked so that we are ready when he comes back. That's the focus of this ministry. So this is an interesting point. When we or they return by the hand of Yahweh, the land will be wasted, destroyed, and ruined. So when this is time, that land will currently be in a state of destruction, destroyed. And the desolate land shall be tilled, whereas it lay desolate in the sight of all that passed by. That was Ezekiel 36:34. So thus says Yahweh Elohim, this is Jerusalem. I have set it in the midst of the nations and the countries that are round about her. And I will do in you that which I have not done, and whereunto I will not do any more the like, because of all thine abominations. Moreover, I will make you waste and a reproach among the nations that are round about you in the sight of all that pass by. And that's Ezekiel 5:5, 9, and 14. So while she was destroyed during the time of Nebuchadnezzar and in 70 AD, I believe she will be laid waste one more time. Ezekiel 22 points out that there would be a time when Yahweh carries out the final blow to this rebellious people. He gathers them at the end and destroys them. Truly, this did not happen in 70 AD. Why? Because they're all over the place still. The people inhabiting the land today are the descendants of the Pharisees who still uphold the commandments of men, rather than that of the pure doctrine of Yahweh through his son, Yahusha. Let's just check Rabbinic Judaism real quick. So Rabbinic Judaism, Yahudit Rabbanit, also called Rabbanism, or Judaism espoused by the Rabbanites, has been the mainstream form of Judaism since the 6th century CE. After the codification of the Babylonian Talmud, Rabbinic Judaism has its roots in Pharisaic Judaism. So what am I telling you? That people that are inhabiting that land, that are following Judaism, are the offspring of the Pharisees, still doing Pharisee stuff. So we're going to continue in Ezekiel 36. This is actually Ezekiel 22, 19 through 22. So sorry, not Ezekiel 36. So Ezekiel 22, 19 through 22. Therefore, thus says Yahweh Eloheinu, because you are all become dross, which is what, shiny metal is not supposed to do, right? That's dross means it's like not shiny anymore. Because you're all become dross, or like worthless, behold, I will gather you in the midst of Jerusalem, as they gather silver and brass and iron and lead and tin into the midst of the furnace, to blow the fire upon it, to melt it. So will I gather you in mine anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there and melt you. Yea, I will gather you and blow upon you in the fire of my wrath, and you shall be melted in the midst thereof. As silver is melted in the midst of the furnace, so shall you be melted in the midst thereof, and ye shall know that I, Yahweh, have poured out my fury upon you. That's Ezekiel 22, 19 through 22. So the Song of Moshe, Exodus 15, is both a song of history and prophecy, and it corroborates this narrative about that land being melted. So then the dukes of Edom shall be amazed, the mighty men of Moab, trembling shall take hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. Canaan is the ancient name of the land of Israel. So it's saying that Canaan will melt away. It'll be melted, just like it said right here. So what is Yahweh saying? In the end, I'm going to get the remnant of you, people that have rejected my Messiah, have been broken off from the family, and I'm going to gather you in the midst of Jerusalem, and I'm going to melt you. So fear and dread shall fall upon them by the greatness of your arm. They shall be as still as a stone till thy people pass over, O Yahweh, till thy people pass over, which you have purchased. You shall bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O Yahweh, which you have made for you to dwell in the sanctuary, O Yahweh, which your hands have established. So this is basically saying at the time of Canaan melting away, then his sanctuary, right, New Jerusalem, which you have established with his own hands, will come. So his hands make end times Jerusalem, not man. So here's a passage from 2 Baruch regarding the true end times Jerusalem. This passage we're about to read takes place right before Nebuchadnezzar's army destroys Jerusalem. And Yahweh said unto me, this city shall be delivered up for a time. This is physical Jerusalem. And the people shall be chastened during a time, and the world will not be given over to oblivion. Do you think that this is the city of which I said, on the palms of my hands I have graven you? This building now built in your midst is not that which is revealed with me. That which was prepared beforehand here from the time when I took counsel to make paradise, and I showed it to Adam before he sinned. But when he transgressed the commandment, it was removed from him, as also paradise. New Jerusalem is essentially Eden. It's like getting back to the garden. That's the whole story. And after these things, I showed it to my servant Abraham by night among the portions of the victims, right? The threshold covenant, I think those are at Genesis 15. And again, also I showed it to Moshe on Mount Sinai when I showed to him the likeness of the tabernacle and all its vessels. And now behold, it is preserved with me as also paradise. Go therefore as I command you. Now 2 Baruch 4, 1-6. So here is what the true battle for Jerusalem looks like when Messiah returns. So earlier we shared some verses from like Zechariah 12, which, dispensational theology teaches like, hey, don't worry, Jerusalem will be protected because Zechariah says so. I believe those passages that talk about Jerusalem being protected is New Jerusalem. Again, my opinion. So here's a passage from 2 Ezra 13, 34-36. This is also known as 4th Ezra. And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together as you saw them, willing to come and to overcome him by fighting. But he shall stand on top of Mount Zion, and Zion shall come, just like Revelation says, it descends, New Jerusalem. Zion shall come and shall be showed to all men, being prepared and built, like as you saw the hill graven without hands, just like we saw here. Do you think that this city is of which I said, on the palms of my hands I have graven you? No, because he made it himself. When the real Jerusalem is revealed with a true regathering, this is what the nations will see and perceive. Ezekiel 36, 35-36. And they shall say, this land that was desolate is become like the Garden of Eden. And the waste and desolate and ruined cities are become fenced and are inhabited. Then the nations that are left round about you shall know that I, Yahweh, build the ruined places and plant that was desolate. I, Yahweh, have spoken it and will do it. So the nations will know clearly this land is going to go from just destroyed to Garden of Eden like that. Hasn't happened yet. That was Ezekiel 36, 35-36. So what's the point? The land of Israel will be in ruins before the true regathering happens. So who destroys Mystery Babylon? Now we'll be getting into the meat of today's headlines and why it is actually important for prophecy's sake. We will be reading from the book of 2nd Esdras, also known as 4th Ezra. This book was included in the 1611 KJV, the 1599 Geneva, and many other canons. It was regarded and embraced as scripture by most believers until the mid-1800s during the dispensational movement. What we will find is the Arabic, known as Islamic nations, will band together to annihilate Israel. 2 Ezra 15, Yahweh says, behold, speak in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in your mouth, and cause them to be written on paper, for they are trustworthy and true. Do not fear the plots against you, and do not be troubled by the unbelief of those who oppose you, right? So this is what I was saying earlier. Do not fear the plots against you. So we can talk about, jabby jabs in the arm and, no buying or selling and all this kind of stuff. He's saying, don't fear the plots against us, right? For every unbeliever shall die in his unbelief. Behold, says Yahweh, I bring evils upon the world. the sword, and famine, and death, and destruction. For iniquity has spread throughout every land, and their harmful deeds have reached their limit. I think in a different version it says pestilence. I bring pestilence upon the world. Therefore, says Yahweh, I will be silent no longer concerning their ungodly deeds, which they have impiously committed. Neither will I tolerate their wicked practices. Behold, innocent and righteous blood cries out to me, and the souls of the righteous cry out continually. I will surely avenge them, says Yahweh, and I will receive to myself all the innocent blood from among them. And talking about here, behold, the innocent and righteous blood cries out to me. This is just a little passage in Revelation 6. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of Elohim and for the testimony which they held, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Yahweh, holy and true, do you not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And that was Revelation 6, 10 through 11. Back to 2 Ezra 15. So behold, my people is led like a flock to the slaughter. I will not allow them to live any longer in the land of Egypt. Personally, I believe that America is end times Egypt. This is a melting pot for most of his believers, the lost 10 tribes, so on and so forth. So I will not allow them to live any longer in the land of Egypt, but I will bring them out with a mighty hand and with an uplifted arm, and will smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all its land. You can't get through the book of Revelation and not see that plagues and all these things kind of repeat themselves. So remember what we started this study with, the real second Exodus that has not happened yet. So it's the story all over again, right? Fleeing Egypt. Let Egypt mourn and its foundations for the plague of chastisement and punishment that Yahweh will bring upon it. It is very possible that America could be destroyed before Israel. Why? Because we know that America is Israel's strongest ally. So it's possible that Yahweh could allow destruction to America before Mystery Babylon. One of the daughters can be destroyed before the mother is destroyed. I'm open to that. I mean, it's kind of what this is saying here. Let the farmers that till the ground mourn, because their seed shall fail, and their trees shall be ruined by blight and hail and a terrible tempest. Alas for the world, and for those who live in it. For the sword and misery draw near them, and nation shall rise up to fight against nation with swords in their hands. Right? That reminds me of Messiah talking about nation against nation, people against people, kingdom against kingdom. For there shall be unrest among men, growing strong against one another, and they shall in their might have no respect for their king or the chief of their leaders, right? You can just look around at riots and protests. Most people don't like their leadership, their politicians, their kings, their prime ministers, right? So they shall have no respect for their king or the chief of their leaders. So this is surely coinciding with what Messiah said about wars and rumors of wars. Back to 2 Ezra 15, verse 17. For a man will desire to go into a city and shall not be able. That's interesting, right? The real lockdowns? Maybe. For because of their pride, cities shall be in confusion, the houses shall be destroyed, and people shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbors, but shall make an assault upon their houses with a sword and plunder their goods because of hunger and for bread and because of great tribulation. So what is this saying? This is like what a lot of people think is coming, right? The food supply is going to get shut off. And, you get all these guns and weapons in this country. How long does it take until people are so hungry and you see their kids starving and they're like, yeah, I'm going to go over to Bob and Sally's because they seem like a weak target, and I'm going to go get food from them by force, or hopefully they'll give it to me. And if not, I got to do something, honey, because we don't want the kids to starve. Or you got like roving gangs. They're like going to take over, whatever. Point being is, I think a lot of people see this coming, right? That there will be neighbors will be assaulting each other, plundering their goods because of hunger and because of great tribulation. So this sounds like what most of us know. What's coming. Verse 20, Behold, says Elohim, I call together all the kings of the earth to fear me, from the rising sun and from the south and from the east and from Lebanon, to turn and repay what they have given them. Just as they have done to my elect unto this day, so I will do and will repay into their bosom, says Yahweh Elohim. My right hand will not spare the sinners, and my sword will not cease from those who shed innocent blood on earth. And a fire will go forth from his wrath, and will consume the foundations of the earth, and sinners like straw that is kindled. Well, now listen to this, because this is probably the most important part of this whole study. Woe to those who sin and do not observe my commandments, says Yahweh. I will not spare them. Depart, you faithless children, do not pollute my sanctuary. For Yahweh knows all who transgress against him, therefore he will hand them over to death and slaughter. For now calamities have come upon the whole earth, great tribulation, and you shall remain in them, for Elohim will not deliver you because you have sinned against him. So if you have not begun to keep the commandments of Yahweh, now is as good a time as ever. This is truly the most important part of this whole study. It really is. And this goes right hand in hand with what Messiah says in Matthew 7, where he says, many will come to me in that day saying, Lord, Lord, Adonai, Adonai, open to us. Did we not cast out demons in your name, which unbelievers don't do, and in your name have done many wonderful works, and in your name have... Forgive me for not memorizing, but right, people are going to be like, hey, we believed in you and we did all this stuff in your name, right? And he's going to say, away from me, I never knew you, you transgressors of the Torah. Who wants to be in that camp? Not me. So again, if you have not begun to keep the commandments, or you don't even know what that looks like, there's a lot of resources on this channel, other channels. There's a very basic video I put out there. Actually, if you look at the playlist sections I have, you'll see one called The Basics. That'll really help you out. A terrifying vision of warfare. Behold, this is back to 2 Ezra 15, verse 28. Behold, a terrifying sight appearing from the east. The nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and from the day that they set out, their hissing shall spread over the earth, so that all who hear them shall fear and tremble. So the nations of the dragons of Arabia are the Arab Islamic countries we know today. Also the Carmonians, raging in wrath, shall go forth like wild boars of the forest, and with great power they shall come and engage them in battle, and shall devastate a portion of the land of Assyria. This is Syria with her teeth. So Carmonia is modern-day Iran. And then the dragons, so the Arabians, remembering their origin, shall become still stronger, and if they combine in great power and turn to pursue them. So what is it saying? They will be united in a common cause. So that's why my eye is really on this conflict, because, you know, if Israel continues to kill civilians, I think you might have a probable cause for the nations, the Islamic nations, the Arab nations, to unite and to destroy that country, period. So judgment on Babylon. So that's why earlier we were talking about Mystery Babylon. Here now we're going to see kind of a parallel thing that we see in Revelation. Again, a central theme in Revelation, the book of Revelation, is the destruction of Babylon, Mystery Babylon. So here in 2 Esdras we see it as well. Behold, clouds from the east and from the north and from the south, and their appearance is very threatening, full of wrath and storm. They shall dash against one another, and shall pour out a heavy tempest upon the earth, and their own tempest, and there shall be blood from the sword as high as a horse's belly. We see this in Revelation. And a man's thigh and a camel's hock. I mean, you just got blood, just blood. And there shall be fear and great trembling upon the earth, and those who see that wrath shall be horror-stricken, and they shall be seized with trembling. And after that, heavy storm clouds shall be stirred up from the south, and from the north, and another part from the west. And the winds from the east shall prevail over the clouds that was raised in wrath, and shall dispel it. And the tempest that was to cause destruction by the east wind shall be driven violently towards the south and west. And the great and mighty clouds, full of wrath and tempest, shall rise to destroy all the earth and its inhabitants, and shall pour out upon every high and lofty place a terrible tempest. Fire and hail and flying swords and floods of water, that all the fields and all the streams may be filled with the abundance of those waters. And they shall destroy cities and walls, mountains and hills and trees of the forest, and grass of the meadows and their grain, and they shall go on steadily to Babylon, and shall destroy her. And they shall come and surround her. What does this sound like? Right? Remember Messiah said, and when you shall see Jerusalem encompassed, surrounded with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. They shall pour out the tempest and all its wrath upon her. Then the dust and smoke shall go up to heaven, and all who are about her shall wail over her. A lot of you that have read Revelation know what this is saying. Revelation 18 through 19. So thinking about wailing over her, over Babylon, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? What is, especially like Christians, right? What's the most revered city for them? It's probably Jerusalem, right? Because of what we've all been taught. So what city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city, which Revelation 11:8 plainly says is the place where Yahusha was crucified. Jerusalem, wherein were made rich all the ships that in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour she is made desolate. Now think about her costliness. We're not talking about, straight up money and gold and silver to build up Jerusalem. Think about the cost. Think about the lives it costed to build, to rebuild Israel, right? We talk about World War I and World War II. Almost the whole point of it was to create the state of Israel, per the enemy's plans. Ezekiel 36 had something very similar to say. So think of the reason. Think of the reason of her costliness, right, to build that place up. So who exactly destroys Mystery Babylon is still yet to be seen, just because it's a little vague into Esdras about clouds from the east and the north and the south. Didn't specifically say, but what's interesting is before the destruction of Mystery Babylon, you're going to see the Islamic nations gathering together, and they're going to start destroying stuff. So who destroys Mystery Babylon is still yet to be seen, because there's a lot of passages that make it look like the Joel 2 army, who is Yahweh's army, is the one that actually destroys Babylon. So I can't say that I have that really pinned down yet perfectly, but the order of events we see here is Islamic nations gather together, start destroying stuff, and then destruction of Mystery Babylon, and then all the end time stuff, which we'll see here in Revelation 14 in just a moment. So but what we can establish is the Arabic world reuniting together in fury starts all this. This is why the current tension is interesting. It is possible that Israel... Is it possible that Israel continues to kill Palestinians, the catalyst for uniting the Islamic world? Two things can happen at this point. The current skirmish can fizzle out and things can return to normal like it has for years. That's a possibility. This all could just be setting it up for a later time. Or this turns out to be what has been planned for quite some time and matures into a full-scale war fulfilling prophecy, as we have been discussing tonight. So as of today, the population in Israel is 8.7 million. If it were to be destroyed, you can imagine the worldwide outrage due to loss of life. This would surely be a foothold for the beast to unite the world under the banner of peace, a false peace. Why? Because the sentiments would sound something like this. We have seen the horror of the Holocaust, but this is even worse. We must unite as one people to end these racial, political, religious, and ethnic wars, right? So again, the enemy's plan is problem, reaction, solution. They're causing all these divisive problems, including racial tensions, including religious tensions, pro-jab versus anti-jab, pro-mask versus anti-mask. I mean, it's just everything, right? They create those problems. They formulate the reaction via their own media, and people only see what, the elite want them to see, and then they offer the solution. So if this is, these tensions in the Middle East are problem, reaction, solution, well, if it becomes a major problem, the reaction is going to be huge, and the solution is going to be part of end times prophecy. So while the world will mourn, all heaven will rejoice. Interesting how that will work, right? Rejoice over her, you heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for Elohim has avenged you on her, Mystery Babylon. So why do they rejoice? That was Revelation 18:20. So 18:24 says, and in her, Mystery Babylon, was found the blood of the prophets. This is important. The blood of the prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth, right? Here's why that's important. This is what Messiah says. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would have not been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets, right? The blood of the prophets, right? So, and in her was found the blood of the prophets. Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers, you serpents, you generation of vipers. How can you escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them ye shall scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, right? So what does it say here? And in her was found the blood of the prophets and of saints and all that were slain upon her, right? So that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of the righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you that all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you that kill the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto you, how often would I have gathered you, your children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. That's Matthew 23, 29 through 38. So Messiah, in conjunction with what Revelation says, is that all the blood is upon Jerusalem. So the time, we're getting to the end of this now. So the timing of this event in the 144,000. This is Revelation 14. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers, or guitarists, right? Harpers harping with their harps, or guitarists guitaring with their guitars. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders. And no man can learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. A lot of people take that very literally, but that's for another time. We don't have to identify who the 144,000 are right now. They which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goes, these were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto Elohim and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile. Why? For they are without fault before the throne of Elohim. Just like Isaiah, when he was up in the throne room in Isaiah 6, and he's like, woe is me, I am undone, for I have seen Yahweh Sebaot, the great king. And I am a man of unclean lips, and dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. Comes right over to him, puts the coal in his mouth. He says, behold, your iniquity is taken away. Gone, right? So they're without fault before the throne of Elohim. And that's why in their mouth was found no guile. They're forgiven, redeemed. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and every kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear Elohim and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. His judgment on what? We'll see here in just a second. And worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So this is why it's really interesting for a lot of people that really understand who the 144,000 are. Maybe you're starting to understand who they are at the time of their sealing and of them being redeemed is the judgment of Mystery Babylon, the destruction of the land of Israel, Jerusalem specifically. So these escape the judgments of the world, the 144,000 do, and the great multitude. This is a part in Ezekiel. I think this is Ezekiel, what is this, 4? Oh, I didn't put it in here, sorry. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying also, thou son of man, say, thus saith Yahweh, an end is, I think this is 4, an end is come to the land of Israel. The end is come on the four corners of the land. Remember, before, think about the angels standing on the four corners of the earth, right, holding back the winds that they may not blow until the 144,000 are sealed. So an end has come to the land of Israel. The end has come to the four corners of the land. The end has come on you, the inhabitant of the land, right? Not his people, but the inhabitant on that land of Israel. The time has come, the day has drawn nigh, not with tumult, nor with pangs. Now I will pour out my anger upon thee near at hand. And I will accomplish my wrath on you. Remember we read earlier in Ezekiel 22 how he's going to gather them, and he did it by the hands of the Rothschilds and the United Nations. I'm going to gather you into the midst of this land, and I'm going to melt you, is what he said. And I will accomplish my wrath on you. And I will judge thee for thy ways, and recompense upon you all thy abominations. My eye shall not spare, nor will I have any mercy. For I will recompense thy ways upon you, and your abominations shall be in the midst of you. And you shall know that I am Yahweh that smites you. Now the end is come to you, and I will send judgment upon you, and I will take vengeance on thy ways, and I will recompense all thine abominations upon thee. Mine eye shall not spare, nor will I have any mercy, for I will recompense your way upon you. And your abominations shall be in the midst of you, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. For thus says Yahweh, behold, as the end is come, behold, the day of Yahweh. Although the rod has blossomed, pride has sprung up. So who's blossomed? The rod? The tribes. The tribes, right? The tribes of Israel have budded, just like when Yahusha says, when the fig tree puts forth her branches, know that summer is nigh. So likewise know that when all these things come to pass, yeah. Any kid. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I wrote it. Okay, good. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation, or the Hebrew gospel says, that generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. So although the rod has blossomed, right, the tribes have blossomed, pride has sprung up. So even though there is a remnant being raised up, the world is just in utter chaos and filthiness. So talking about, bringing fruit, when the branch is yet tender and puts forth his leaves, you know summer is nigh. Why? Because it puts forth its wings. Psalm 1:1-3 tells us what the fruit that we as men or people are to bear. Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law. Hebrew word here is Torah. His delight is in the Torah of Yahuwah, and in his Torah does he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he does shall prosper. So this is what Yahusha is talking about. In the last days, when true Israel, the church, starts waking up and bringing forth fruit, which is faith and obedience, that's when these things would happen. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. This is Ezekiel 7. So this is continuing. I will break the staff of the wicked one, and not with tumult, nor with haste. The time is come. Behold the day. Let not the buyer rejoice, and let not the seller mourn. For the buyer shall never again return to the seller, neither shall a man cleave with the eye of hope to his life. Sound ye the trumpet, and pass sentence on altogether. There shall be war with the sword without, and famine and pestilence within. He that is in the field shall die by the sword, and famine and pestilence shall destroy them that are in the city. But they that escape of them shall be delivered, and shall be upon the mountains, and I will slay the rest, every one for his iniquities. And this is Ezekiel 7:1-16, which is what we read earlier and just now. This is the Septuagint version. So these people who escape will have a job to do once they escape. For behold, Yahuwah will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will Yahuwah plead with all flesh, and the slain of Yahuwah shall be many. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating pork, swine's flesh, and the abomination of the mouth shall be consumed together. Why would you ever want to put a piece of pork in your mouth ever again? Says Yahuwah. For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. And I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them unto the nations. So those are people that are going to escape, come to Zion, and be sent back out. Just like Yahusha gathered the disciples and sent them back out. Where? To Tarshish, to Pul, and Lud, that draw the bow, to Tubal and Yavan, and the isles of far off, that have not heard my fame, neither have seen my glory. And they shall declare my glory among the nations. And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto Yahuwah out of all the nations, upon horses, and in chariots, and in litters, and upon mules, and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain Jerusalem. This is New Jerusalem, says Yahuwah. As the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel into the house of Yahuwah, and I will also take of them for priests and Levites, says Yahuwah. And that was Isaiah 66:15-21. So it's not just the 144,000 who escape. After this, which the Greek can also mean with this, I beheld, and lo, a great multitude. And this comes right after the sealing of the 144,000 in Revelation 7. So it really should read, with this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes. I believe this is the resurrection, the first resurrection, and palms in their hands. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, you know. And he said unto me, These are they which came out of great tribulation. They were not left in it, like we read earlier in 2 Ezra 15, right? He says that now tribulation has come upon the whole earth, and you will remain in them, for you have sinned against Yahuwah. But for those that kept the commandments, they would be protected and hid. And have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of Elohim, and serve him day and night in his temple, and he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. And that was Revelation 7, 9, 13, 9 and 13 through 15. So at the time of the sealing of the 144,000 and their escape with the great multitude, the nations will drink of the cup of astonishment from Yahweh, starting with Jerusalem, which will receive a double portion first. So remember, Revelation 18:6 says, reward her, this is Mystery Babylon, as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works, and the cup which she had filled to her double. Here's the connecting verse. You'll also find it in Ezekiel 22 and 23 of why Mystery Babylon has a double cup. But here's a quick one, easy one to make the confirmation. So speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem, and cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she has received of Yahweh's hands double for all her sins, right? Double unto her according to her works, double for all her sins. Isaiah 40, verse 2. So first Jerusalem, then the world. For thus says Yahweh Elohim of Israel unto me, take the wine cup of this fury at my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send thee to drink it. And they shall drink and be moved and be mad because of the sword that I will send among them. Then I took the cup at Yahweh's hand and made all the nations to drink, unto whom Yahweh sent me, to wit, so starting with Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, and the kings thereof, and the princes thereof, to make them a desolation, an astonishment, and hissing, and a curse, as it is this day, right? As it is already. So now he's talking about a future desolation. And then Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his servants, and his princes, and all his people, and all the mingled people, and all the kings of the land of Uz, and all the kings of the land of the Philistines, and Ashkelon, and Azza, and Ekron, and the remnant of Ashdod, Edom, and Moab, and the children of Ammon, and all the kings of Tyrus, and all the kings of Zidon, and the kings of the isles which are beyond the sea, Dedan, and Tema, and Buz, and all that are in the utmost corners. This is your worldwide tribulation. And all the kings of Arabia, and all the kings of the mingled people that dwell in the desert, and all the kings of Zimri, and all the kings of Elam, and all the kings of the Medes, and all the kings of the north, far and near, one with another, and all the nations of the world which are upon the face of the earth. And the king of Shishak shall drink after them. Therefore thou shalt say unto them, thus says Yahweh Sebaot, the Elohim of Israel, drink ye, and be drunken, and spew, and fall, and rise no more, because of the sword which I will send among you. And it shall be, if they refuse to take the cup at thine hand to drink, then thou shalt say unto them, thus says Yahweh Sabaoth, you shall certainly drink. For lo, I begin to bring evil on the city which is called by my name. So he's telling you right here, I'm going to start with Jerusalem, that is called by my name, Yarushalayim. His name is Yahuwah, Yarushalayim. So I begin to bring evil on the city which is called by my name, and should ye be utterly unpunished? Ye shall not be unpunished, for I will call upon a sword upon all the inhabitants of the earth, says Yahweh Sabaoth. And that was Jeremiah 25, 15 through 29. So judgment begins with the land of Israel, just like Peter says, judgment begins at the house of Yahweh. Judgment begins at the land of Israel, my brothers and sisters. Nevertheless, this is the beginning of Yahweh's wrath upon this land. Or are these, is this the beginning of, so what we're seeing in the news right now, is this the beginning of Yahweh's wrath upon this land? Or are these staged events, much like we see throughout the country and the world, in order to move about certain plans? Again, problem, reaction, solution. They're going to issue the problem, they're going to create the problem, they're going to formulate the reaction, and offer the solution. So I'm no prophet, just a lover and a student of his word, so it is yet to be seen. These current tensions could merely be staged, with real deaths, of course, in order to bring about peace from the false light. After all, the beast will unite the world, and they will have a common enemy that they will want to destroy, the arrival of Yahusha and the real Jerusalem. And again, remember, the overall point here is that before the real regathering and the real New Jerusalem comes down, that land will be decimated. So, behold, the days are coming when the Most High will deliver those who are on the earth, and bewilderment of mind shall come over those who dwell on the earth. And they shall plan to make war against one another, city against city, place against place, people against people, and kingdom against kingdom. Much like what Messiah said. This is back to 2 Esdras, but chapter 13. And when these things come to pass, and the signs occur which I showed you before, then my son will be revealed, whom you saw as a man coming up from the sea. And when all the nations hear his voice, every man shall leave his own land and the warfare they have against one another. So when he comes, there is going to be conflict, nation against nation, people against people. And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as you saw, desiring to come and conquer him. But he will stand on top of the Mount Zion, and Zion will come and be made manifest to all people, prepared and built, as you saw, the mountain carved without hands. So this is big. So when the Messiah Yahusha comes back, there's going to be people against people, nation against nation, city against city. It might be very well World War III or just a major conflict. But when he comes, the people are going to be united together and be like, whoa, we should stop fighting each other. That's the enemy right there, that cube or pyramid floating in the sky. That's the aliens or whatever they say. That's the enemy. You ever wonder why Hollywood spends so much time about stuff floating in the air that people gather or unite to destroy or see what's going on with it? And he, my son, will reprove the assembled nations for their ungodliness. This was symbolized by the storm, and will reproach them to their face with their evil thoughts and the torments with which they are to be tortured, which were symbolized by the flames, and will destroy them without effort by the Torah, which was symbolized by the fire. Brothers and sisters, you're going to want to be, you're going to have faith in the Most High through his son Yahusha, and be keeping the Torah when Messiah Yahusha comes back. That was 2 Ezra 13, 29 through 38. So, we're going to finish up with this. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Elohim, and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For Elohim shall bring every work into judgment, with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Ecclesiastes 12, 13 through 14. So, regardless of where this ends up, I do believe it is safe to say we are close to the return of our Messiah. And praise be to Yahuwah for that. I think a lot of us want to be with him forever. So, until then, what do? We fear Yahuwah. We believe in his son and what he did for us and his atonement, right? His offering up of himself for us. And we walk as he walked, according to the commandments. And again, if you have any questions about that, if that seems like, well, the law was done away with, it was nailed to the cross, that's the old law, that's the Old Testament, it's been done away with, I would highly recommend you pray about it a little more. Ask the Most High in prayer if he wants you keeping his commandments. And then if you want to seek it out further, there's a lot of resources out there. If you want to look at what we have on our channel, our ministry, just go to the playlist section, and there's like beginners or basics, I think is what it's called. So check it out. But with that, let's end with a couple things. We're going to start with a prayer, and then we're going to do a couple songs. We'll do the priestly blessing, and maybe the song of Moshe because of prophecy. So let's do that. So Heavenly Father, Yahweh, we come before you. In Yahusha's name, we thank you for allowing us to gather together like this and to study your word and to sharpen each other as we all continue to learn. We thank you for opening our eyes and ears in these last days to seek out truth, to seek you out with all of our heart, soul, and mind, and to know that you exist and are a rewarder of those that diligently seek you. So we ask that you guide our path, fill us with the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, that we may walk in your way and bring forth the fruit that you want from us, and that we may be found ready when Messiah Yahusha comes back. We love you, and we bless you, and thank you for all things. Amen. And Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters. So let's end with a couple songs. Let's start with the priestly blessing. Yevarechecha Yahuwah Ve'yishmerecha Ya'er Yahuwah panav lecha ve'chuneka Yisa Yahuwah panav lecha ve'yaseh lecha shalom Yisa Yahuwah panav lecha ve'yaseh lecha shalom ve'yaseh lecha shalom ve'yaseh lecha shalom.
bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious